This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
Today on CityCast Boise. For decades, Idaho has had one of the highest rates of youth suicide in the country. In 2023, there was another spike with 16 teens in the Treasure Valley losing their lives. For Suicide Prevention Month, we're finding out how Boise School District is working to reverse this trend. Content warning, this episode discusses topics that could be upsetting. It's Wednesday, September 25th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Joining me today is Andrea Garrity, Social Work Supervisor, and Jason Shanks, Counseling Supervisor with Boise School District. Thank you both for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for having us, Lindsay.
So I just want to jump into this. There have been some startling statistics when it comes to youth suicide in Idaho and Ada County. And there was recently a story from the Idaho Statesman that detailed how 16 young people died by suicide last year, including 4 students that attend Boise School District. Has this been on the school district's radar?
Yes, definitely. Student safety and mental health is always on our radar, but even more so since coming out of COVID, as we wonder how kids are recovering, how they're doing. That's one reason why we started doing the student wellness survey, to get the student voice about what they need. And, anytime we lose a young person, it's devastating to our community. So we're really committed to addressing this very seriously.
And there was a spike in deaths last year, but this isn't a new problem. Idaho has had the 5th highest youth suicide rate from 1999 to 2020. What are you seeing as some of the contributing factors to that problem?
Yeah, great question. So if we're thinking more recently, we can't talk about this topic without talking about COVID and coming out of COVID. And what we saw with students going into isolation at home and to quarantine, kids came back out of COVID just a little bit different. Their routines were disrupted. Their social connections weren't there any longer. Their social skills were down. So as they came out of COVID, we really have had to support them with that. When suicide's already a complex issue anyway, now we throw in a national pandemic, it really has altered the change of our students. So with that, we're also looking at mental health challenges, social isolation, and then other factors, bullying, family dynamics, academic pressures, just things that are really affecting our students. So those would be our main contributing factors. We can't always speak for every student. There are so many things that are all encompassing with each of our students, but those are some of them.
And I'm really curious because the spike that was reported was in 2023. Are you finding with these issues it's getting better after the pandemic started, or it's continuing to be an issue, or is it still being exacerbated? What kind of is that trend like?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. And I actually was diving into our data just earlier today, and it's up and down. In 2018, 2019, we also had, I believe it was 2018, 2019, we also had 3 student deaths. And we've always had just a low level of ones that are happening. So as we're going through any of this, we see the ups and downs. We adjust accordingly to try to support our students, support the families, and support our community, because that's ultimately what this is about. So it's really hard to say specifically what this could be.
And I know it can be very complicated. There's a lot of factors, like you said, Jason. Prior to this school year, have there been efforts by the Boise School District to address these complicated issues or bring awareness to them?
Yeah, so we've had Sources of Strength as a curriculum that we've offered for years. And we have licensed master's level mental health professionals in our schools available to support students, to create school-wide programming depending on what the needs are. This past year, we were able to increase our staffing and the programs that we offer in our school. So we're definitely building from that, but it is a long-standing value in our district and something that we've offered our students for a long time.
And do you feel like those changes have been effective, or have you seen changes with students from those programs and those changes?
Yeah, we have seen some positive outcomes. There's been increased awareness, stronger culture of support within our schools. And we acknowledge that, the issue of youth suicide remains a persistent challenge. And our efforts have likely helped many students who were struggling or in crisis. And ultimately, we really need to just always be adapting and expanding our approach to respond to what our students need.
Jason, I'm really curious, from your perspective, what is the school district's role or responsibility when it comes to issues like this?
Yeah, so when we're talking about suicide prevention, intervention, postvention, I really like to take a step back first. We can't just say what is the role of the school district, but what's the role of our whole community? This is really a public health crisis. So what is the role of our parents? What's the role of our partners? What is the role of the greater community? Within that, absolutely, our school district has a role. And from the moment a student walks in the door, our role is to make sure that students having a positive school environment, that we're providing the opportunity for that student to connect to other students. We know that connection is often one of the biggest protective factors for our students. So we take those two things very, very seriously when we're thinking about our students coming in. The other portion of that too is students come to our schools to learn. So we want to be providing the correct prevention material and the correct psychoeducation for our students to know how to respond when they are having thoughts of suicide, how to respond if they see one of their friends having thoughts of suicide, who are the trusted adults that they can get, what is the appropriate response with that trusted adult, what's the timely response. So just making sure that the education is supported by those resources of, hey, 988 is out there as well. So.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
Okay, so one of the reasons I wanted people from Boise School District or representatives from Boise School District to come on the program, and I really wanted a chance to talk with you, is that Boise School District has implemented some new programs this year, or has emphasized implementing programs this year to address the mental health issues that students are facing. So what are those programs?
Yeah, another great question. So I want to clarify too, with us implementing programs, it doesn't mean that we didn't have anything that wasn't taking place. We just respond appropriately to what we see as the need with our students, with our community right now. So the first program that we implemented, and we actually implemented it last week, at least the first phase of it, is called Signs of Suicide. And essentially, what that is doing is going back to what I said a few moments ago, just making sure every student knows how to recognize signs of suicide, how to care for their friends or themselves if they are experiencing them, and then how to act on that. So essentially, how do I connect them with services? A really great portion of this one, I felt like with Signs of Suicide, is we asked our teachers to teach it. And that's not something that we've always done. We've always had the mental health professionals do that, but we felt it was really important for the mental health professionals to partner with the teachers and come alongside the teachers, since they are the teaching experts, and teach a little bit about mental health science, about how you talk with kids, and then have them as the trusted adults in the students' lives that are on the forefront every day be the ones that deliver that curriculum. So that was a big shift for our district. That was a difficult shift for some people, and others embraced it. And I'm just so proud of so many of our teachers that did this so well and really sent that message to students.
Are you, can I ask really quickly, are you having all teachers teach it, or teachers of certain disciplines or certain types of classes, or was it kind of just a broad all teachers?
Yeah, so we, in our 7th through 12th grade classes, we asked all teachers to do it, knowing that some teachers may have past situations that would really maybe prevent a barrier from them teaching it. We didn't want to put a teacher in a situation that would make them really uncomfortable. So knowing we would adapt for certain teachers, but our goal was really to be able to have every teacher And if the coach is a teacher, every coach, then to be able to have some of the talking points and some of the knowledge and some of the language surrounding the signs of suicide curriculum.
I really like that because different students are going to resonate with different teachers in different classes, and that gives every teacher the tools if a student approaches them. So I think that was a really, really good choice. I just, looking at my own kids, they have different teachers that they connect with, other teachers, maybe not so much. And so it would be good to know that whichever teacher they trust or feel a connection with, they would be able to help them. So I really think that is a phenomenal thing to do.
Yeah, it's really had great impact. Continue to have stories coming in of we didn't know this kid needed support, and we found out they did. And we didn't know this teacher was so dynamic with teaching about mental health and actually liked it. So really positive things coming out of it.
And with the Signs of Suicide program, what are some of the things that teachers are being taught to look for? I mean, we're specifically talking about Boise School District, but mental health issues can affect anyone in the community. I'm sure there's some crossover things that the teachers are taught to look for that could be really beneficial to other people in the community.
Yeah, so with the curriculum, it's teaching, originally teaching the teachers and then the teachers teaching the students just to keep their eyes open for, one, changes in behavior, two, for explicit discussion of end of life or even the word suicide. Again, looking at other factors as well. Is a student starting in a school? How's their attendance? Do they look like they have slept well? Have their grades changed? There's just so many factors that can go along with that, and just so independent to every student, but recognizing the big ones. It's also worth noting, teaching our teachers to recognize these signs isn't something new. Even though we just implemented signs of suicide, our teachers and all staff have been being trained every year about the signs of suicide with students and fellow staff members and what to do in those situations they might find them in. This is just really the first time we've asked them to teach it to other students.
And what are some of the ways that they're being taught to support students, or that students are being taught to support their peers?
Yeah, so the main thing is the acronym ACT is used in signs of suicide. So one, acknowledging how that student is feeling, really taking the time to talk with them and validating how they're feeling. Two, an ACT is care. So again, showing that you care for them. Are you going to walk them to that counselor? Are you going to walk them to that trusted adult? So the C and the T kind of go together, as the T is tell. So telling that trusted adult, getting that student to one of the adults that then can get them with a mental health professional that can provide one, communication with their families, because that's super important. If we have a student that is having thoughts of suicide, we want to be communicating with their families. But then two, if warranted, connecting that family to resources outside of the school so that student can get the help that they need.
And what are some things, I know this is just with these statistics, having teenagers myself, what are some things that parents should be watching out for or aware of that could indicate that their child might need more help or might be having mental health issues?
I would say we always want parents to stay connected with their children, regularly check in on them. We know sometimes, teenagers might give us the impression that they want to be left alone, and sometimes they do, but we still need to check on them and note any dramatic changes in their mood, their appetite, their sleep, their social engagement. A lot of times teenagers, if they are experiencing some symptoms of depression, it might come across as irritability or aggression. So it's just important to notice those changes and talk openly with your children if you're worried about them. The research really shows that talking about suicide directly is protective. It helps students be more likely to ask for help. And that's kind of a shift in thought than, maybe where we were 20 years ago of not wanting to talk quite as openly.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, I know when I was in high school, kind of the thought was don't bring it up, don't talk about it, or that could encourage somebody to act on it. So that definitely is a shift from the school of thought when I was in school. What are some tips you have for parents if they are noticing this, if they are concerned and maybe don't know what to do, or if something is big enough to warrant action? What are some tips for parents?
One of the tips I would have is reach out to your school counselor, your school social worker, the mental health provider there has access to resources that can guide you through that. They do this with students every day. They're a great asset in getting help. The other part about reaching out to the school is checking in with the teacher. Are they seeing the same thing? Is this just a situational thing at home? Or is this something that's happening across all of the different aspects that your child is participating in? With that, connecting with your child, like Andrea said before, talking with your student, and connection. I keep coming back to connection because we know if a student is in a club, if they're playing a sport, if they are doing the violin, just things that are connecting them to other trusted adults, connecting to them to other kids, it's a huge protective factor to be part of something that's bigger than themselves.
And another program I read about the Boise School District implementing is the Hope Squad. And with the Hope Squad, how does the idea of community resilience help students who might be having mental health issues or challenges?
So the community resilience model is a model that was developed by the Trauma Resource Institute. And that is a set of wellness skills that many of our schools are offering to the students who are in Hope Squad. And it helps them track what's happening in their nervous system so that they can maintain some balance and calm and kind of cope with the stressful job of being a student and also potentially supporting other students. And the phrase community resilience, it really elicits this idea of all the students and the adults in a school being well and being able to practice caring for themselves and caring for each other.
And I just want everyone to know that September is Suicide Awareness Month. And with that in mind, I wanted to broaden this discussion just a little bit and find out what should people, how can people keep an eye out for friends or family members, coworkers, maybe children who they see have signs that they might need a little more help, a little more support?
I would say a lot of the similar things that we would suggest when you're thinking about your own children. If you notice that a colleague or a friend has had a change in mood or the way they're behaving, or you just haven't heard from them in a while, it's always a good idea to reach out, say, hey, I'm thinking about you. Is everything okay? What's on your mind? And just like we teach our students, we ask how people are doing, we give them a chance to talk, and then we encourage them to connect to professional support if that's something that they need.
And I know maybe something that would hold me back is I don't want to, I don't want to pry. I don't want to make somebody feel self-conscious. So what is maybe a good strategy to just check in without maybe sounding like I'm checking in?
I guess for me, it's just extending an invitation to somebody that they can share what's on their mind if it's the right time and they feel comfortable. And not everybody is going to pour their heart out every time, but just offering, a gentle invitation sometimes is the right way to go.
Really makes me think of what a student said to one of our mental health people in the schools last week. I would rather have that other person a little frustrated with me for asking rather than not asking, and then that student deciding to take their life. So I think I would always err on the side of checking in, even if it feels a little bit uncomfortable, because we really don't know what's going on in our friends' lives. Even with what they're telling us, it's just the tip of an iceberg of what everything else that's happening. So ask. I just would encourage people to ask.
No, I think that's a great perspective to keep in mind. Thank you both for joining me today. I know this is a really heavy topic, a really delicate topic, so I appreciate your expertise and taking the time to break it down with me.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
If you or anyone you know is struggling with thoughts of suicide, you can always call the Suicide Crisis Lifeline at 988. They're available by phone or text 24 hours a day at 988. That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. If you learned something, maybe share this episode with a friend. We'll be back tomorrow morning with a lighter local story, your guide to the best sports bars in the Treasure Valley. See you then.